watched, and the leaders jeered at him, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is really God's Messiah, the chosen one." The soldiers ridiculed Jesus too by offering him a drink of sour wine while calling out to him, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." A sign was fastened to the cross above him with these words, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals hanging beside him scoffed, saying, "So you are the Messiah, are you? Then prove it by saving yourself and us too." But the other criminal protested, "Do you not fear God even when you have been sentenced to die? We deserve to die for our crimes, but this man has not done anything wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus replied, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." My sisters and brothers, the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
You may be seated. I know as I sit here in your presence, I look like a train wreck. And so here I am with a patch on my eye, a brace on my foot, and I'm sitting in a wheelchair. And you probably weren't expecting that you would have someone preach to you that looks like I look like right now. I look like a war veteran, like I was in combat. And indeed, I have been in combat of a different sort. I have been wrestling with the devil, or so I thought. And then I realized it was myself who I was wrestling with. How many have had that experience? We like to blame the devil, and the fact is, it is our own heart that we struggle with. Today, we hear the prayer of Dismas. Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. That ought to be our prayer. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Will you say that with me? Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. That's a perfect prayer. That's the only prayer you need to have. And Jesus hears and responds to that prayer. And he will do that for you today. When I was a newly ordained priest, I would always wear my collar so I was identifiable. So I would go into public, I would go in the grocery store wearing my collar. I would go to the mall wearing my collar so people would recognize me. And the thing was, I think I did that more for myself than I did for other people, because I liked the affirmation that I got from people when they would come up and call me Father. You know, so I realized that I have mixed motives, that I want to be the center of attention, and at the same time, I struggle against my own ego. So it's a constant battle we're engaged in. I would be approached by people who would want to engage me in conversation at this time when I was a new priest. And so I would be happy to share conversation with people. And so the advantage of dressing like a priest was people knew I was a priest. They'd come up and talk to me. And they would like to talk to me about religion. Is that surprising to you? So they would have all the religious questions and comments they want to give to me, because these were people who usually did not go to church, and they wondered what religion was all about. And then I would talk to them, and then they would inevitably say this to me: well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And then I thought to myself, I didn't speak out loud, that sounds kind of like an oxymoron to me. What's the difference between being spiritual and religious? And so it got me to thinking. And I realized that spirituality has to do with the individual person. You have a spirituality. There is a deeper part of yourself in you, a spirit. So spirituality is an appropriate word to use for an individual's practice and their own life of prayer and meditation and other things like that, good works, so on. But the fact of the matter is that that we are not just merely spirits, but we are human beings in flesh. And religion is a sociological expression. Religion is the creation of humanity. It's a way a community of people can share their spirituality. It's hard for me to talk about my spirituality and my spiritual experience, but in the context of a religion, then I have the language and the ability to speak about my spiritual experience. It enables us to be able to enter in fully into the experience of sharing spirituality with one another. So spirituality has to do with your individual life, but religion has to do with the spiritual life as applied to a community. Does this make sense to you?
Yes.
Oh, I'm glad. I like to make sense. Because most of the time I don't make any sense at all. Or so my wife tells me. So anyway, I'm glad that makes some sense to you. And it was helpful for me to make that distinction. Now, one of the things that shows you the value of religion as opposed to spirituality is I will try to give you an analogy. When I was in seminary, I used to play the guitar. I say I used to play the guitar until I married a musician who could really play the guitar. So I hung up my guitar and I don't play anymore. But anyway, one of the things I noticed is that after I had a class in which I had a long lecture I had to endure, then I'd go to my room and I'd pull out my guitar and I would play it and I would do whatever I wanted to do. I was free to make whatever improvisation I wanted to do, and it would relax me. It was a good way for me to unwind, so I played the guitar and did that. Well, if someone were to walk in the room, not to boast or anything, but they would hear me playing the guitar and they would sit down and they would like what I was playing at the time. Not that I was any good, because I really am not a good musician, but it's something that I did. And then I had an opportunity to get together with other band members and play. And my gosh, what an experience that was. It was exhilarating. To do music by yourself, that's satisfying to a degree. To do music with an entire group of people, all of a sudden the energy and the inspiration and the beauty comes out in such a way. Well, this analogy is to show you the difference between spirituality, which is a solo experience playing the guitar, so to speak, and religion, in which you get together with a group or a band and you play. And so religion is always more exciting than spirituality. That's why you're here in church today, because you find religion to be so exciting. You couldn't stay away, you had to come. I'm glad you feel that way. The spiritual life. Within the human soul, in the very depths of your soul, there is your heart, your spirit, the very essence of who you are as a person, that place from which your personality emanates. This is your heart. And within the human heart, there are various chambers. And Jesus refers to one chamber of the human heart, which he called the secret place. Did you know that Jesus believed there's a secret place within the human soul, in the human heart? And Jesus instructs his disciples. He says that when you pray, then you go into your secret place, into your chamber. And there you pray in secret, and your heavenly Father, who is in secret, will see you and hear your prayer. That's interesting, because what Jesus is telling us in his thinking is that there is an inner place within the human soul, the inner spirit, the heart, in which there's a chamber waiting for you to come and visit. It's within your heart that you encounter the divine spirit, you encounter God. And so, when you pray to God in your inner heart, you observe in this chamber that there's a throne. There's a throne in this chamber. It's a throne room. And on the throne is a king. Now, it could be a good king or it could be a bad king. Most of us put our ego on the throne. Let me tell you, your ego is a bad king. Your ego is a slave driver. Your ego is a tyrant. So I don't recommend that you make the ego the king of your life. Now, other people think of other things that is their ultimate concern in life. And so they may make an idol or a false god to be the king of their lives, such as the quest for money or wealth or fame or power. These are the kind of things that want to sit on the throne of our hearts and rule our lives. And we so easily give over our lives to the control of something other. That's why we do some of the things that we do that is not so good for the world or for anybody else. So whoever is sitting on the throne of your heart is the one who rules your life. And what Jesus is doing is he's making a request of you, even now, as you sit in his church. Let me be the king. Let me sit on the throne of your life. Let me direct and guide you. You don't have to do this whole project alone. You can have the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords join you and helping you. So when Jesus was hanging on the cross becomes a pulpit or an ambo. Jesus becomes a living prophet on the cross. On the cross becomes his throne, for he is a king, a descendant of David. And while he was dying, the Romans killed him because they don't want any pretenders to the throne. They didn't want any kings to compete with the emperor. So they crucified Jesus to make an example of him. This is what happens to you when you claim to be a king. And above his head was Jesus, King of the Jews, written for everyone to see, written in Latin, written in Greek, and written in Hebrew, so no one would be left out. They would know. This is what happens to you when you claim to be a king and you defy the Roman emperor. We crucify you. Some king you are. And so while he was on the cross, he uttered his final words. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And when he was dying upon the cross, he was crucified with two other people. You knew that because you've seen the pictures, haven't you, that artists have done. And the two people on either side of Jesus were terrorists. Did you know that? They're called thieves, but they really were insurrectionists, which is another word for terrorists. Now, do you think highly of terrorists? No, no one did. And yet Jesus was crucified among two people who were terrorists and murderers. And while he was there, one of them, and we even give him a name, his name is Dismas. How many heard that name before? Dismas. He was the good thief or the good terrorist, if there can be such a thing. That too is an oxymoron. Anyway, as he was there hanging upon the cross, he looked over at Jesus and he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. This is the highest kind of prayer any human being can offer. That should be our prayer. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom, and may your kingdom be in my heart. May you be ruling in my heart, is what we are asking. That's what Dismas was asking. And Jesus answered his prayer. Jesus said to Dismas, today you will be with me in paradise. We don't have to wait till tomorrow or to some future date in order to get into the kingdom of heaven. It can happen now in our lives right now. When I was struck down by a stroke, I went into a coma. And one of the things I realized that when I was in a coma is I was in a fully conscious state. I had consciousness when I was in the coma. And I was aware of things. I was not aware of what was happening in this world, but I realized I was in another world, and there was complete continuity between this world and the next world. And this was my experience. And so when I came back, I began to realize that there's something to this faith that we talk about so much. There's some reality. And so when I was in this state of being in a coma, I'm not sure if I prayed, but I hope I did. And I hope I said the prayer of Dismas. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And then I woke up. I woke up from my coma. And here I am, I'm talking to you. And I'm not completely back to my old self, but it's starting to happen through the grace of God. Jesus hears our prayers. Jesus can be the Lord and King of your life. And He's the Lord of love. He's the King of justice. So with Jesus ruling in your heart, then what emanates from your heart or radiates from your life is love, because He's the Lord of love. And love is the thing that is most important that Jesus wants to get across to us. With Jesus ruling on the throne of your heart, then love will radiate from your life and touch other lives. And we do need it. So will you pray with me this prayer? You can repeat after me. Jesus, remember me.
Jesus, remember me.
When you come into your kingdom.
When you come into your kingdom.
Amen.
Amen.
There's no better prayer than that. And that, my brothers and sisters, is the gospel of the Lord.
Amen.
Amen.